Hi everyone. Today I want to share my experience with learning English words. When I started learning English, I was so excited. I wanted to learn many new words and speak English fluently, but soon I faced a big problem. I couldn't remember the words I learned. At first, I thought learning words would be easy. I would read a new word, write it down, and try to memorize it. But the next day I would forget it. I kept asking myself, why can't I remember these words? It was frustrating. I felt like I was not making progress. I would sit down with my notebook, write words again and again, but after a few days I couldn't recall them. I also tried reading English books and watching English videos. When I heard a new word, I wrote it down, but after some time, I realized I was only collecting words. I wasn't really learning them. My notebook was full of words, but my mind was empty. It made me feel disappointed. Sometimes I even thought, maybe English is too hard for me. I remember one time I learned 10 new words in a day. I was so happy and proud of myself, but when I tried to use them in a conversation with a friend, I couldn't remember a single one. I felt embarrassed and thought, what am I doing wrong? There were times when I wanted to give up. I thought, maybe learning English isn't for me. But deep down, I knew I had to keep going. I wanted to improve, and I believed there must be a better way to remember words. So, I started searching for solutions. I read articles, watched videos, and asked other learners for advice. Slowly, I discovered some amazing techniques that really helped me remember words better. These methods changed the way I learned English, and I felt more confident. In this series, I'm going to share my journey with you. I will tell you what worked for me and how you can use the same techniques to remember new words easily. If I can do it, you can too. Hi everyone, welcome back. In the last episode, I talked about my struggle with remembering new words. Today, I want to share one of the most important things I learned on my journey: repetition. At the beginning of my English learning journey, I thought that reading a word once or twice was enough to remember it. I believed that if I saw a word in a book or heard it in a video, it would stay in my mind forever. But I was wrong. I realized that my brain needed to see and hear the word many times before I could actually remember it. I remember one time when I learned the word beautiful. I saw it in a book, and I thought, okay, I know this word now. But the next day, I forgot it completely. I couldn't even spell it correctly. That's when I understood that just looking at a word once was not enough. I needed to repeat it many times in different ways. So I decided to try a new method. First, I wrote the word beautiful in my notebook. Then I wrote it again and again. I said it out loud: beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I even made sentences with it like, this is a beautiful day, or you have a beautiful smile. The more I repeated it, the easier it became to remember. But I didn't stop there. I learned that repeating words immediately after learning them was helpful, but if I didn't review them later, I would still forget them. That's when I discovered something called spaced repetition. This means that instead of repeating words many times in one day, I should practice them over time. For example, when I learned a new word, I practiced it on the first day, Then I repeated it the next day. After that, I reviewed it after 3 days, then 1 week later, and so on. This way, my brain had time to remember the word naturally. It felt like the words were slowly becoming a part of my memory. To make it easier, I used flashcards. I wrote a new word on one side of the card and its meaning on the other side. Every day, I looked at my flashcards and tried to remember the words. If I remembered a word easily, I practiced it less often, but if I forgot a word, I repeated it more frequently. This method really helped me a lot. I also started using repetition in my daily life. Whenever I learned a new word, I tried to use it in conversations. For example, if I learned the word delicious, I would say things like, "This food is delicious," or "That cake looks delicious." By using words in real life, I repeated them naturally, and they stayed in my mind for a long time. Another trick I used was listening to words repeatedly. I downloaded audio recordings and listened to them while walking, cooking, or even before sleeping. Hearing words again and again made them easier to remember. Sometimes I even repeated words with music. I would listen to English songs and try to sing along. It was fun, and I was learning at the same time. At first, repetition felt boring, but I realized that it was the best way to learn. The more I practiced, the better I became. Slowly, I stopped forgetting words so quickly, and I started feeling more confident in my English. So, if you are struggling to remember words, don't worry. Just repeat them again and again, and don't be afraid to review them after some time. Try writing, speaking, listening, and using them in your daily life. And most importantly, be patient with yourself. Learning takes time, but with repetition, you will see great progress. That's all for today's episode. In the next episode, I'll share another technique that helped me a lot: using pictures to remember words. Stay tuned and keep practicing. Another great method I discovered was using pictures. When I connected a word to an image, it became so much easier to remember. I realized that my brain works better with visuals than just words on a page. For example, when I learned the word apple, I looked at a picture of a bright red apple and said the word out loud many times. Somehow, the picture made the word stick in my mind better than just reading it. At first, I didn't know how powerful this method was. I used to write long lists of words with their meanings, hoping to memorize them, but it was difficult, and I often forgot the words quickly. One day, I thought, what if I add pictures next to the words? So I drew a small picture of an apple next to the word apple. It made such a big difference. Suddenly, whenever I saw an apple in real life, I would remember the English word without even trying. I became excited and started using pictures for everything. When I learned the word dog, I found a picture of a dog and looked at it while saying the word again and again. When I learned words like chair or table, I took pictures of my own furniture and labeled them in English. Seeing the objects and saying their names helped me remember them without much effort. Soon, I realized that this method works even better when I make it fun. I started making my own flashcards with words and pictures. On one side, I wrote the word, and on the other side, I glued or drew a picture. Every day I looked at the flashcards, and they helped me practice in an easy and enjoyable way. Using pictures also made learning more interesting. Instead of feeling like I was studying, it felt like a game. I created small quizzes for myself. I would look at a picture and try to remember the English word without looking at the back of the card. If I got it right, I felt proud of myself. If I got it wrong, I practiced it again. Another thing I did was stick pictures around my house. For example, I put a picture of food in the kitchen with the words bread, milk, and cheese written on it. Every time I went to the kitchen, I saw those words, and over time, I didn't even need to think about them. They were just in my memory. I also tried using picture dictionaries. These books are full of colorful pictures with English words next to them. It was much easier to learn words this way because I could see them in context. For example, I saw a picture of a park with words like tree, bench, and grass. Seeing everything together helped me understand and remember the words more effectively. Another trick that worked for me was using online tools and apps. There are many apps where I could learn words with pictures. Some apps even had small quizzes where I had to match the correct picture with the right word. It was a fun way to test my memory more and learn at the same time. I found that pictures are especially helpful for learning difficult words. Some words don't have a direct translation in my native language, so using pictures helped me understand their meaning better. For example, words like cloudy or sunny were easier to remember when I looked at weather pictures instead of just reading definitions. Looking at pictures also made learning faster. Instead of spending a long time trying to memorize a list of words, I could just look at a picture and instantly remember what the word meant. It saved me time and energy, and I felt more confident in my learning. If you have trouble remembering words, I really recommend trying this method. Find or draw pictures for new words, use flashcards, and surround yourself with visual reminders. You'll be surprised at how much easier it becomes to remember English words when you can see them. Learning English doesn't have to be boring. With pictures, it becomes more fun and exciting. And the best part? You don't even realize you're studying. So if you're struggling to remember new words, give this method a try. It works like magic. When I first started learning English, I realized that just memorizing words was not enough. I could write them down, repeat them, and even look at pictures to help me remember, but none of that mattered if I wasn't using them in real life. I quickly discovered that practice is the key to actually learning and remembering new words. Without practicing the words I learned, I found that I would forget them as quickly as I learned them. At first, I was unsure how to practice. I didn't know where to start or how to use the words in everyday situations. But then I had an idea. Why not use the words around me in my daily life? I began by labeling things in my house with English words. I didn't just put random notes around the house. I focused on items I used every day. For example, I stuck a note on my mirror that said mirror and another on my door that said door. Every time I walked into my room, I would look at the note and say the word out loud. When I saw the mirror, I would think mirror. It was simple, but it worked. Next, I did the same thing in my kitchen. I labeled items like fridge, stove, cup, and plate. Every time I opened the fridge or picked up a plate, I would say the word aloud. I found that seeing the words and saying them out loud helped me remember them. It was almost like I was speaking to myself in English without even realizing it. But I didn't stop there. I wanted to take this method even further, so I started labeling more things. I put words on my bookshelf for book, on my bed for pillow, and even on the window for window. I had words everywhere. It felt like I was living in an English-speaking environment. Every time I saw one of the labels, I would say the word, and over time, I stopped needing the labels. The words were in my memory now. The key to this method was repetition. Every day I would walk around my house and repeat the words. It wasn't boring because I was using them in real situations. I was also seeing them constantly. When I did this, I found that the words started to stick with me. I could easily recall the words when I needed them, even if I hadn't practiced them in a while. At the same time, I started using the words in conversation. It was a little scary at first because I wasn't confident in my speaking skills, but I knew I had to try. I would speak to my friends, family, or even to myself, trying to use the words I had learned. For example, when I went out with my friend, I would say, "It's a sunny day today," or "Look at that big tree over there." I would try to use new words in sentences. Sometimes I made mistakes, but that was okay. I kept practicing, and the more I spoke, the more confident I became. Using the words in conversations made a huge difference. I learned that when I used words in real life, they became part of my vocabulary. Just reading or writing the words wasn't enough. Speaking and using them in context made them stick in my memory. But it wasn't just about speaking to people. I also started using new words in my writing. I would write short stories or diary entries, and I made sure to include the new words I was learning. For example, if I learned the word happy, I would write about how I felt that day, like, "I am happy because I learned a new word today." Writing helped me think about the words more deeply, and it also gave me a chance to practice using them in different contexts. Another thing I did was keep a journal. Every day, I would write a few sentences or a paragraph using new words. It didn't have to be long or perfect, but it allowed me to practice using the words I had learned. For example, after learning the word delicious, I might write, "The cake I ate today was delicious. I felt so happy to eat something so delicious." By writing every day, I could see how the words fit together in sentences, and I could remember them better. As I kept practicing, I noticed something amazing. The more I used the words, the easier it became to remember them. It wasn't just about memorizing. It was about integrating the words into my life. The more I spoke, wrote, and thought in English, the more natural it felt to use the words. I also started to notice new words in everyday life. I would hear people use words I had learned in conversations, on TV, or in books. Every time I heard a word I knew, I felt proud because it showed me that my practice was paying off. I was no longer just studying words. I was using them in real situations. I also began to see the importance of using words in context. For example, it wasn't enough to just know the word car. I needed to know how to use it in sentences like, I drive my car to work, or my car is blue. Understanding how to use words in different contexts made me feel more confident. But what really helped me the most was consistency. At first, I struggled with remembering words, but as I kept using them daily, I realized that small efforts every day made a huge difference. I didn't need to spend hours studying. A few minutes here and there, using words in my conversations and writing, was enough to make them stick. If you are struggling to remember words, try practicing them in your daily life. Label objects around your house, use new words in conversations, and write short sentences or stories. The more you use the words, the easier they will be to remember. I quickly realized that learning English doesn't have to be boring. In fact, when I made learning more fun, I started looking forward to it every day. In the beginning, I thought studying English meant sitting down with a textbook and writing endless lists of words. But I soon discovered that there are so many exciting and enjoyable ways to learn. This completely changed my perspective on learning languages. One of the first fun activities I tried was watching English movies. At first, I was hesitant. I thought, how can I possibly understand everything in a movie? But I decided to give it a try. I started watching movies with English subtitles so I could follow the story while reading the words at the same time. This helped me see the words in context, and it felt much more engaging than reading from a textbook. Whenever I heard a new word in the movie, I would pause the film, rewind, and listen again. If the word was important or interesting, I would write it down in my notebook. I didn't just write the word, I also wrote down the sentence or scene where I heard it. This way, I could understand how the word was being used in context. For example, if a character said, "I'm so tired today," I would write down the word tired and the whole sentence. This made it easier for me to remember because I saw how the word fit into the conversation. Watching movies helped me with more than just vocabulary. It improved my listening skills and pronunciation as well. When you watch movies in English, you hear the natural rhythm of the language. The way people speak in real life is different from how it's written in a book. By listening to movies, I learned how to stress certain words, how to use different intonations, and how native speakers sound when they speak quickly. It was like having a private English teacher who was always there, showing me how to speak more naturally. Another reason I loved learning through movies was that it didn't feel like studying. I wasn't sitting in front of a classroom. I was enjoying a movie just like anyone else. But every time I watched a scene, I was learning something new. I could replay the movie as many times as I wanted, and it was a fun way to practice. The more movies I watched, the more confident I became in understanding spoken English. But movies weren't the only fun activity that helped me. I also listened to music to improve my English. Music was an enjoyable way to learn new words and expressions. Sometimes songs are easier to understand because the lyrics are slower and clearer, especially if you listen to them multiple times. I would listen to my favorite English songs, and each time I heard a word I didn't know, I would look it up. One of my favorite activities was to listen to a song and then try to write the lyrics down without looking. This was a great way to practice listening and writing at the same time. I would sing along to the song and try to match the words to the beat. It helped me with pronunciation, and soon I could sing the songs without even thinking about it. Songs also introduced me to a lot of slang and informal expressions that you don't often see in textbooks. For example, I learned phrases like, "What's up?" or "I'm feeling good." These are common in everyday conversation, and understanding them helped me sound more natural when I spoke. When I made music a part of my learning process, it felt like I was practicing without the pressure of studying. I could relax, enjoy the music, and still improve my English. It was like learning in a way that didn't even feel like work. In addition to movies and music, I also started playing word games. I'm a competitive person, so playing games was a great way for me to challenge myself. I downloaded apps on my phone that focused on English vocabulary and grammar. One of my favorite games was a word search app. In this game, I had to find hidden words in a grid of letters. At first, it was difficult, but over time, I got faster and better. The more I played, the more words I learned. I started to notice that I was remembering words I had learned in other contexts, like from movies or songs. I also played crossword puzzles, which are great for expanding your vocabulary. Sometimes I would play a game with a friend where we would take turns guessing words in a crossword puzzle, and we'd use clues to figure them out together. This made learning feel social, and I could practice using new words with someone else. We would laugh when we made mistakes, but that's part of the learning process. It was also a way to bond over something I loved, language. Playing these games taught me how to think quickly in English. I had to come up with answers and use words I hadn't thought of in a while. As I played, I realized how much my vocabulary had improved, and I was able to recall words easily when I needed them. Word games also taught me how to deal with frustration. When I couldn't find the answer right away, sometimes I had to be patient and look at the problem from a different angle, which is a skill that can be applied to learning in general. The great thing about word games is that they can be done anytime and anywhere. Whether you're waiting for a bus or relaxing at home, you can pull up your phone or play a board game with friends. It's a way to make the most of your free time and continue practicing English in a fun way. Learning through fun activities like movies, music, and games made the entire process much more enjoyable and less stressful. I didn't feel like I was studying all the time. Instead, I was engaging with the language in a natural, relaxed way. Every time I watched a movie or sang along to a song, I felt like I was making progress. And the best part? I didn't even realize how much I was learning. If you're struggling to stay motivated or bored with traditional learning methods, I highly recommend trying these fun activities. Watch your favorite movies, listen to songs you love, and play word games. These are all great ways to improve your English, and the best part is that it will never feel like studying, but you'll be learning every step of the way. After all my experiences learning English, I want to share my top tips with you. These are the things that really helped me on my journey, and I believe they can help you too. So let's get started. The first and most important tip I have for you is to be patient with yourself. Learning a new language takes time, and there will be moments when you feel like you're not making progress. Trust me, I've been there. There were days when I felt frustrated because I couldn't remember a word or because I couldn't understand what someone was saying. But it's important to remember that learning is a process, and it's okay to make mistakes along the way. In fact, mistakes are part of the journey. When I started learning English, I wanted to speak perfectly right away, but I quickly realized that language learning is a marathon, not a sprint. It takes time to build your vocabulary, improve your pronunciation, and understand grammar. The key is to keep going, even on the days when you feel like you're not making progress. Be patient and trust that every little step you take brings you closer to your goal. My second tip is to practice every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. Consistency is the key to success. In the beginning, I thought I needed to study for hours every day, but I soon realized that small daily practice was more effective. Whether it's reading for 5 minutes, practicing new words, or listening to a song, every little bit of practice counts. I made it a habit to practice English every day, no matter how busy I was. Some days, I would practice for just 10 minutes, and other days, I might spend 30 minutes or more. But the important thing was that I made learning a part of my routine. Even if you only have 5 to 10 minutes a day, don't skip it. Practice consistently, and over time, you'll see amazing results. Another tip that really helped me was to use different methods to learn. Repetition is key. As I mentioned before, repeating words and phrases over and over again helped me remember them better. But it's not just about repetition. Using pictures also made a big difference. By connecting words to images, I was able to remember them more easily. Whether I was labeling objects around my house or using flashcards, seeing the words in context with pictures helped them stick in my memory. But the best method, in my opinion, was real-life practice. This is where I saw the most progress. Whether it was speaking with friends, using new words in writing, or labeling items around my house, practicing in real situations made learning much more effective. It's one thing to know a word in isolation, but it's another thing entirely to use that word in conversation or writing. So find opportunities to practice English in your daily life. Talk to people, write down your thoughts, or even speak to yourself in English. The most important tip I can give you is to enjoy the process. Learning English shouldn't feel like a chore. When I started making learning fun by watching movies, listening to music, and playing games, I stopped stressing about making mistakes and just enjoyed the journey. If you enjoy what you're doing, it won't feel like studying. It will feel like something you look forward to every day. So, if you're struggling or feeling overwhelmed, remember that it's okay to take a break and do something you enjoy. Watch a movie in English, listen to your favorite song, or play a word game. Learning is much easier when you're having fun, and it keeps you motivated to keep going. I've shared a lot of tips and techniques throughout this series, but there's one final thing I want to remind you of. If I can do it, you can too. Learning English isn't always easy, but with patience, consistent practice, and the right methods, you will make progress. Don't compare yourself to others. Everyone learns at their own pace, and that's perfectly okay. Keep practicing, enjoy the process, and most importantly, never give up. You have everything you need to succeed, and I'm cheering you on every step of the way. Keep learning, and I can't wait to see how far you'll go. When I was learning English, I made a lot of mistakes. At first, I felt embarrassed and even frustrated. I thought making mistakes meant I wasn't good at English. But over time, I realized something important. Mistakes are actually a great way to learn. Every mistake I made taught me something new, and slowly, I started improving. One of the biggest mistakes I made was not speaking enough. I was afraid that if I spoke English, I would say something wrong and people would laugh at me. Because of this fear, I avoided speaking, and that slowed down my progress. But one day, I decided to stop worrying about mistakes and just speak as much as possible. I talked to myself in front of the mirror. I practiced with friends, and I even joined online English groups. The more I spoke, the more confident I became. Another mistake I made was trying to memorize too many words at once. I thought if I learned 50 new words a day, I would become fluent faster, but I was wrong. I couldn't remember them all, and I felt overwhelmed. Later, I realized that learning fewer words but using them in sentences was much more effective. I focused on learning 5 to 10 new words a day and practiced them in real conversations. This helped me remember the words better and use them naturally. I also used to focus too much on grammar. Don't get me wrong, grammar is important, but I spent so much time worrying about small grammar mistakes that I forgot to enjoy learning the language. Instead of overthinking grammar rules, I started focusing on communicating. I learned that it's okay to make grammar mistakes as long as people understand what I'm saying. One of the most valuable lessons I learned was that asking for help is not a weakness. In the beginning, I was too shy to ask questions. I didn't want to bother my teachers or friends, but when I finally started asking questions about things I didn't understand, I learned faster. I realized that most people are happy to help, and asking questions is a smart way to learn. Mistakes can sometimes feel discouraging, but now I know that every mistake is an opportunity to grow. Instead of feeling bad about them, I started writing them down in a notebook. Whenever I made the same mistake twice, I would look at my notes and remind myself how to fix it. This small habit helped me avoid repeating the same errors again and again. So if you're afraid of making mistakes, don't be. Mistakes are a normal and important part of learning. The key is to learn from them and keep moving forward. Remember, nobody speaks perfectly from the beginning. Everyone makes mistakes, and that's how we improve. If I can overcome my mistakes and improve my English, so can you. Keep practicing, and don't be afraid to make mistakes along the way. They are part of your learning journey. Learning English is exciting, but let's be honest, it's not always easy to stay motivated. There were times when I felt tired, frustrated, and even wanted to give up. Sometimes I felt like I wasn't improving at all, and I questioned if I was wasting my time. But I found ways to keep myself motivated, and today, I want to share them with you. One of the best things I did was setting small, achievable goals. In the beginning, I had big dreams, like, I want to speak English fluently, but that goal felt too far away. So I decided to break it down into smaller steps. I set goals like learning 5 new words every day, speaking for 5 minutes in English with a friend, and writing a short paragraph in English every day. When I reached these small goals, I felt a sense of achievement, and that kept me motivated to do more. So, I recommend setting small, realistic goals that you can accomplish step by step. Another thing that helped me stay motivated was tracking my progress. I started writing down the words I learned, the books I read, and the conversations I had in English. Seeing my progress over time made me realize how far I had come. One day, I looked back at my old notes and saw how much my vocabulary had improved. This gave me the confidence to keep going. You can do the same. Write down your progress in a notebook or use an app to track your learning. Even small improvements matter. Learning English is hard work. So, I decided to reward myself after reaching my goals. For example, after finishing a lesson or learning a new set of words, I treated myself to something I enjoyed, maybe watching my favorite show or having my favorite snack. These small rewards kept me excited about learning. Try to reward yourself when you achieve something, no matter how small. It will make learning more enjoyable and something you look forward to. One thing I realized is that I learn better when I enjoy the process, so I focused on the things I loved, watching movies, listening to music, and playing games in English. When learning is fun, you don't even realize you're studying. If you love reading, try reading simple English books. If you enjoy talking, find a language partner. If you like music, listen to English songs and sing along. The key is to make learning a part of your hobbies so it feels natural and fun. To stay motivated, I also tried to surround myself with English as much as possible. I changed the language on my phone to English, followed English-speaking YouTubers, and even labeled things in my house with English words. The more I surrounded myself with the language, the more it became a part of my daily life, and I felt motivated to keep learning. You can do the same. Immerse yourself in English in small ways every day. Finally, one of the most important lessons I learned is to be kind to myself. Some days were harder than others, and that's okay. There were days when I didn't feel like studying, and I reminded myself that it's okay to take a break. Sometimes, learning a language is a journey, not a race. So, if you ever feel tired or frustrated, take a step back, relax, and remind yourself why you started learning English in the first place. Stay positive and keep moving forward. Staying motivated is one of the biggest challenges in learning English, but with the right mindset and habits, you can keep going. Set goals, track your progress, make learning fun, and remember to enjoy the journey. If I can do it, you can too. Stay motivated, stay positive, and keep learning every day. You've got this.